Bondage is a horrible thing. The humiliation of not being a free man and not controlling your own destiny is 1,000 deaths. A person of courage only dies one death, but a coward, a slave, dies thousands of deaths. And I see the excesses and the wanton prosecution of tyranny against every form of goodness and the religious fervor with which the system destroys the republic, destroys the Bill of Rights, destroys the Constitution. I am watching our shields fall, the hedge fall. I'm watching what our forebears built, a system to protect the individual and to protect basic freedom. I am watching it burn up before my eyes like a city on fire, collapse daily. Things that the globalists would only attack from the side with a glancing blow, things that they would only chew at on the edges for decades, they are now just wrecking balls to the War Powers Act, wrecking balls, the power of the purse, wrecking balls to Congress with the Super Congress, wrecking balls to the Second Amendment, wrecking balls to sovereignty and the border. I mean, they are just, it is all being destroyed right now. Any way you look at it, we now have a dictatorship of the executive branch in this country. The republic has truly fallen. So, Muammar Gaddafi is vowing to fight for years, and it's buried all over the even mainstream media that the main rebel force is real al-Qaeda, that these are rebels that fought U.S. forces in Iraq, and that they are now to be given control of the government of Libya, and undoubtedly now they will let these groups attack the United States and then simply take more of our liberties. See, that's the masterpiece that is staged terror. But don't forget what CNN and Fox News are both reporting. First responders decry exclusion from 9/11 ceremony. They are not allowed to be there. The government says, well, we're going to try to recognize you, but you're not allowed into Ground Zero. Only the politicians are. Why is that? Well, it's because most of these responders are mad about the fact that they have been denied health care for 9+ years. And when they finally were authorized to get it, they have to go through Homeland Security every time they access health care to, quote, check them to make sure they're not terrorists. And all over the country, in many different types of jobs now, including union jobs, you have to get Homeland Security authorization before you can have that job. And I'm talking about janitorial jobs, street sweeping jobs. See, the war on terror is about making us all prisoners who've got to get government permission, even if you've never committed a crime, to buy a gun, to have a job, to travel. That's the essence of an internal checkpoint in an authoritarian system. But it's all done to fight the terrorist. And then meanwhile, real al-Qaeda, for 6 years, has been attacking the Iranians in staged terror attacks in their country to undermine that government. And our own supposed government admits it. And then they're used against the Serbs, they're used against the Russians, they're used against Gaddafi. As I've told you, Osama bin Laden was CIA created and trained. 9/11 was a staged event. The official story is a fraud. And 9/11 has been used to burn our republic to the ground. We're now just basically more real estate. If we don't have that Bill of Rights, if we don't have that Constitution, then we're just more dirt. Like North Korea or Mexico or Russia or China. Joe Biden yesterday said he totally understands China's one-child policy and doesn't have a problem with it. I bet he doesn't have a problem with it. It was the United States went over there and signed an agreement to industrialize China and to sign tax deals to ship our jobs there in the mid-1970s. You've seen the results of that. If China would reduce their population, that's how important it is to the globalists to kill people. This is a command and control system meant to level society, meant to bring us back to the Stone Age, while the elites behind their national security cordons enjoy the advanced technologies that our tax money has financed the development of. You know, until just about 3 years ago, all over the world, it was in basic medical handbooks not to give a pregnant woman vaccines. Now, they tell them vaccinate pregnant women first and often. Causes all sorts of neurological disorders, brain damage in the baby. That's admitted. I've got an article by a medical doctor today, Dr. Mark Circus, Vaccine Assault on Children by World Government. And it goes through the fact that they go into areas with debilitated and already sick children who they know are sick and inject them knowing it's going to absolutely devastate them. All over the world, I see articles coming out every week now where they give people more shots filled with sterilants, filled with live viruses, polio with live virus. And I just sit here and watch the scientific dictatorship spiking our food, spiking our water, spiking our air, admitting they're chemtrailing us now. And they just sit there and you watch the addled, brain-damaged population squirming and flopping around. And I watch the globalists like a cat playing with a mouse, just torturing humanity and getting away with it and just stealing and robbing. And it's got to come to an end. Humanity must awaken. All right, I'll get to the news, then your calls on the other side. Stay with us. We are back live. We're going to have open phones and a ton of news now that I've had a few segments to pontificate about the fact that a effective dictatorship of the bureaucracy itself financed and peopled by members of the Fortune 100 that control government via the revolving door and, of course, their political contributions. But that's a small part of it. It's the payoffs by hiring politicians and generals once they get out of government and then go back into government. It's the payoffs by hiring their wives and their children. I mean, this is a system where big corporations can come in, pay government off, and government will openly let them write the regulations to shut down their competition. It is the essence of true discrimination. But notice people only think about discrimination in terms of what color someone is. Now, the toll-free number to join us on any of the news items we've raised is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. Getting briefly back to the first responders being barred from the 10th anniversary, that's not a joke. I was on Mancow Muller's syndicated radio show today, as I am every Wednesday, as a guest for 15 minutes or so, and I brought this up to him, and he didn't believe it at first, and then his producers were able to pull up Associated Press, New York Times, CNN, that indeed they're not allowed in Ground Zero with the thousands of people. Only the politicians and corporate chiefs are allowed there to talk about the heroes of 9/11 and sell giving up our liberties because the first responders want us to give up our freedoms. But they're not allowed to be there because most of them don't buy the official story. The vast majority, I've met hundreds of them. Again, I would go down there 5, 6 years ago and would get flipped off some, would get yelled at by some of the firemen, some of the police who were there for the memorial. Some of them, a lot of them shook my hand, patted me on the back, and gave us interviews. We've interviewed quite a few police officers, firefighters, medics, and others. The last time I was there, wow, it's now 3 years ago. I haven't been back in 3 years, or is it? Yeah, it'll be 3 years this year. I couldn't walk down the street. I mean, it was commanders and captains and firefighters and police. Now, there were a few Marines. One guy was leading a horse. He was part of a parade. He flipped us off. We have video of that and posted on the web. And later we ran into him in a restaurant, and of course, he wasn't there on 9/11. But, you know, he flipped us off and thought that was real tough, that we were out there saying 9/11 was an inside job. But you're there saying 9/11's an inside job, and thousands of police and military and firefighters are going by, and they're going, "We appreciate you, Alex." "Yes, sir, we know. Good job, good job." I'm like, you want to talk on camera? No, just, I mean, it was like the head honchos were out there, firemen and police. You know, the guys, the commanders were, "Alex, we appreciate you." And then, but again, those were people who were there officially because they were people that responded that day. I could go around the corner and protest and have, you know, Port Authority cops come over and get in our face and act like gangster thugs. But, I mean, I've interviewed the police officers on this show who were there and heard the countdown to blow up Building 7. But I don't need to have them on as a guest. I heard it on the radio. They're going to blow up Building 7. We've played the clips. They're going to blow up Building 7. Police saying, "Get back, they're blowing it up." Again, are my lying eyes lying? No, they're not. So why won't the firemen and police and medical people, the real heroes of 9/11, who did respond, many of which died, many of which were injured, why can't they be there? Because they can't be trusted, ladies and gentlemen. They know they were lied to about the dust, the asbestos. Their treatment was blocked. Now they've got to be put through a terrorist database. Firemen and police officers that I've interviewed on this show get men in suits showing up at their house threatening them. They get set up. They get robbed. They get beat up. Do you know how much surveillance they're under? They know about the bombs. They know about the molten metal. They're not allowed in there. In fact, I want to tell my producers now, I want to go back over and see who Luke recommends, because he keeps a tally and knows all these great men and women. We need to, like, as we lead up to 9/11, now only a week and a half away, that tragic event 10 years later, we need to go back over all those police officers, firefighters, emergency responders, military people who we've had on, who saw the bombs going off, heard the bombs, heard the feds say we're going to blow up Building 7. We need to get them on the show. A lot of them we've gotten on, and then I call back a year later and they go, "I've just had too many threats. Man, they've been breaking in my house. They've been threatening me. They said they're going to kill my wife. I'm done. This country's done. If I had money, I'd leave the country. I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, I'm not coming on your show." I mean, you're on the phone with a cop, you know, who's got full disability and was, injured, and people that have had their legs cut off and stuff. I mean, I've interviewed these people. And you're on the phone with them, and they're under surveillance and harassment. Because, I mean, this is what goes on in America. And people say, well, then why are you alive? They'll take over Libya. They'll kill their former asset, Saddam. They will kill JFK, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy. Why aren't you dead? And believe me, I ask that question a lot. And at the end of the day, I think it's people praying for me. I know it is. And it's also from the establishment's position. They don't want to underline, highlight, put 10 exclamation points behind everything I've said and done. You know, I've been doing this for 16 plus years and came from total obscurity and have had a slow burn and now reach millions and millions of people every day. And I think they've made the calculation that if they kill me, it could turn me into a martyr. And they've tried to set me up, and they've tried to throw the women at me, and they've tried to infiltrate my office, and they've sent cops up and, you know, hey, let's do something violent. I mean, I've been through all that. And by the grace of God, I'm still here.